Greetings, family, and I am back. And I came at you after sharing this clip with you. I wanted you all to take
Mnemonic
a listen.
device. Sing it with me. When you need an experiential tool to help you keep your mind on the track you put it on, break the subconscious programming.
Get this crazy shit out of my brain. I don't want crazy shit in my brain. It's so silly, but there is actually a reason for it. So I shared this the other day because we live in a society that makes people believe that they're that they can't change their behavioral patterns and their mind patterns, and that some of these things are beyond their control, and it disempowers people and it makes them feel as if they need someone or something to fix their circumstance. I don't believe that. I personally believe that there are certain facets that I'm not a clinician. Let me be clear. I'm not a clinician. This is my experiences based on my own personal circumstances and beating certain things that I've experienced in my life. But the science behind creating these jingles, which I've created many jingles, I've created dances, I've attached a behavior or a past behavioral pattern or a habit to something that I'm physically in control of in order to get a hold of this behavior or this pattern of thinking and begin to restructure it. So if you constantly hear yourself singing, I don't want crazy shit in my brain, every time something crazy, and crazy can be classified as negative self-talk, crazy can be constantly replaying a trauma or a bad experience, or constantly saying things to yourself like, oh my God, I'm just so fat. Or, comparing yourself to other people. Whatever it may be that you attach meaning to, that thing becomes crazy, right? So that's the crazy thing. So as soon as you start thinking, as soon as your brain, which is a habit forming machine, which is a habitual recorder, so as soon as it starts saying, oh, I'm fat, or oh, I'm not as good as them, you immediately started singing, I don't want crazy shit in my brain, get it out. And if you literally start singing, not in your mind, don't start singing it in your mind, start singing it out wherever you are. If you happen to be on the train, walking down the street, sitting at your desk at work, if you start saying, I don't want crazy shit in my brain, get it out. First of all, you may be laughing at yourself. Second of all, the people in your space may be laughing at you. And then there are going to be people who are going to start to question you. So what are you talking about? You got crazy shit in your brain. And because we automatically, as a society, we believe, oh, crazy shit must be, oh, you're doing something, you got some wild, crazy, outlandish things. But no, listen, I'm working on some personal transformation work. I'm doing some personal development. And I am creating new patterns of behavior by attaching them to these jingles. Let me tell you, I've gone so far as to want to address a behavioral pattern that I had, as much as the moment that it shows up, I would immediately do a praise. I was 17 years old, and I came up with this philosophy because I understood the science of how the brain attaches itself to the subconscious mind and how it attaches itself to actions and to thoughts. So I started doing a praise dance. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Baptist church, Pentecostal church, but they do like these really wild and outrageous like dances, and they believe that they are possessed by the Holy Ghost. And sometimes people are, I guess, because of that's their commitment. They believe that they are, and I will respect that. But when I was doing it, I wasn't. I was just doing it because I was mimicking the dances that I've seen them doing. And it was funny. And remember, I said you got to do it at any time. Anytime it shows up, you can't censor it. When it shows up, you got to do a praise dance. When it shows up, you got to sing, I don't want crazy shit in my brain. So that what you have done is you've interrupted the previous ways of thinking and your previous subconscious thought or the previous habit. You've interrupted it. You've disrupted it and you've pinpointed it. So the moment it shows up, if it shows up 25,000, 100 times in the same day, then I guess you'll be singing, I don't want crazy shit in my brain out of your mind all day long until you get crazy shit out of your brain. Now, if you're singing, I don't want crazy shit in my brain, you can't, you usually can't do it for several different things. It's one thing at a time so that you don't get cluttered up with a bunch of gobbledygook, which you started with. So if you don't want crazy shit in my brain, you're attaching that particular jingle to negative self-talk, or every time you compare yourself to another woman or a colleague or a sibling, someone else's achievement or what have you, you start singing this song to that one particular thing. And once you work that one particular thing out, you've interceded it, you brought it out, and now you've created a new way of thinking attached to that. You've put something else there in that space. Then you will no longer associate the thought. If it does happen to show up, it won't be associated with a negative. It'll be associated with that song, which is outside of yourself, something you can take out and throw away. Okay? So this praise dance for me was showing up every time I would have any self-doubt. Any self-doubt about anything that I would do. I mean, and I was doing this thing 15, 20 times a day. It would just pop up. And I would just have to bust a move. And I was on train platforms on the way to school, work, busting out, doing this praise dance, looking crazy and silly with my backpack on, big puffy winter coat on, just doing this praise dance. And that thing took me about 3 or 4 months of just busting out this praise dance. And they were getting less and less, but I was beginning to attach that behavior to that thought. And it caused me, one, to think and laugh at myself. I had people looking at me, so I was busting through some barriers around embarrassment. So there were a few things that were happening at that time, because at this moment, I'm standing in the balance for the science of reprogramming, which is something that clinicians call, and I will put the disclaimer in there, I'm not a clinician, I'm a holistic healer, but there are some things that we implement in our healing process that are related to the actual science of understanding how you operate. And the brain is the clinical term is called cognitive behavioral therapy. If you're replacing an old habit and you're starting to recondition new behaviors, and you're taking control of that by directly implementing new behaviors into your behavioral, your landscape, your being. So this makes you empowered to be in control of what your mind is thinking, where your mind is going, and get out the negative self-talk, the negative things that do not serve you. They say words create energy, words create outcomes. So if you're constantly hearing these things, you want to shift that way of thinking. You want to shift it with a new behavior. So yes, I don't want crazy shit in my brain, and a goofy song sounds silly. But you know something? It is the type of experiential learning piece that can shift your ways of being. We cannot allow ourselves to stay stagnant in behavioral patterns, in actions, and with bad habits that are not serving us well or our community. So it is our personal responsibility to take responsibility for our behavioral patterns, our thought patterns. Our thoughts become things. We get to change that manifestation and change the energy around that by being empowered to implement. And this is something that's simple. This is not the whole end all and be all. I'm telling you, this is something that has worked for me, and I guarantee it worked for me on several different levels. But for one, you need to be motivated to want to make the change. When it doesn't work the first time, second time, third time, it really depends. You'll have to be committed to some things. Some lessons and some developmental practices that I've implemented has taken me years to acquire. Proficiency, not even expert level, but proficiency in a certain mechanism, and I will slide back or slip back, but I'm aware and I know how to redirect. But it depends on how dedicated you are to implementing a new behavior. Okay, something that I said, you look at a behavior or you look at an outcome and you say, this outcome isn't serving me well. So now you differentiate whether or not you want to continue this behavioral pattern. Once you discover that this behavior or this thought pattern is not serving you well, it's not giving you a good outcome, that's the thing you want to be working on. What mechanism, tool, technique, or mechanism you want to use for that will vary depending on what the severity of the circumstance is. Now, some people want to stop smoking. Some people want to change the habitual behavior of smoking. Well, I tried a lot of things over the course of 17 years of my incremental smoking. I didn't smoke straight through 17 years. I would smoke, stop for 2 years, smoke for a couple of months, maybe smoke for 2 or 3 years, not smoke at all. I was doing it back and forth like that, but I had always been trying to stop. When I finally got to the place where I was stopping smoking, I did everything from chewing straws, chewing peppermint sticks, chewing gum, chewing pin tops, sucking on a lollipop. I did plenty of different things in order to drop peppermint drops. I use those Listerine strips that I would put in my mouth, tear it in half and put a half a strip on my tongue. I was going through those like every 2 or 3 days. But those little things are like $2 or some change for a bag of them, as opposed to I was paying at some point $15 for a pack of cigarettes. So it depends on how committed you are to changing the behavior. Have you decided that you're going to commit no matter what to changing this behavior? No matter what. I've been from an 8 to a 22 for my whole life. So being able to take control of my eating habits, being able to fast for days at a time, only drinking water, or fast only drinking smoothies, or fast drinking tea and water, or fresh pressed juices and smoothies, only drinking, only eating for, not eating before 12 o'clock, not eating for 18 hours, fasting for 7 to 20 days at a time, eating only fruits for a number of days, only eating, drinking liquids for several days. It depends on what your level of commitment is and whether or not you are committed to getting an outcome. For me, I'm committed to getting a yes, period. I'm committing. Failure it's never been an option for me. My degree of what success looks like is having achieved the balance where things are level and there's not too much on the left or too much on the right. There is a balance. That depends on what it is. Now, there's no balance in smoking. Smoking has to go entirely. So there's a little bit of negotiation that'll occur depending on what you are addressing. The point in here is to be so committed that you will not stop until it's done, until you change the behavior. Here's another one. I realized that the bad outcome was that they kept coming up with these statistics about Black women having breast cancer. Well, it arrived to me in my intuitive guide that the closest gland to the breast is under the armpit. So something, they said that aluminum and deodorants are no good, all the chemicals, etc. So I stopped using deodorant almost 15 years ago. Literally stopped using deodorant. I use a crystal, and a crystal takes away the bacteria from underneath the armpit, but it's not a deodorant and it doesn't add any chemicals to the body. A crystal can be found in nature. It is not processed with anything. It's literally just shaved off as a crystal, and you put it under your arm, and it puts a film on your arm that keeps the bacteria from causing odor. It doesn't keep you from sweating because your body rids waste through the sweating system. Your body excretes waste, so you don't want to not excrete waste. You want that to come out like it normally would as a natural process of the body. So this is the behavior that I had to deal with that behavior. 2, I had to deal with the psychological behavior that was attached to the action, which was beating and in conflict with the narrative in our social space that Black people are dirty and that African people are not, they stink, they're dirty. So this is something that has been in our social landscape, which is why so many of us buy so many deodorants, sprays, and perfumes, because we are fighting for an implanted subconscious thought pattern that we've received from the social landscape that create an inadequacy or insecurity within us that told us that we stunk. So because we believe that, we've passed it on through generations as a part of our community. People pride themselves on their perfume drawer, their perfume displays, how much money they spend for their bottles, $100, $200, $300. This was imported. This came from Paris. This came from France. Blah, blah, blah. These are the things that we have now created an entire culture around the insecurity that we as a people, we stink and that we are dirty. So because of this, we have an implanted thought negative thought pattern that created a bad action, and now we have this action where we are now making ourselves sick. So how did I reprogram that behavior? I dealt with the fact that no, this crystal I don't smell, because it also has to do with what you eat, fasting, eating clean, taking in liquids, only fruits. That has a whole lot to do with your entire body and how you excrete and what the odors are that come from your body. So I don't have to worry about stinking. There are times now at this point where I may not wear the crystal for 4 or 5 days. And I'm out and about going to work, taking showers, and keeping going about my business, but you never smell me. Because the body has now taken on a whole new way of functioning and processing, and it's also processing with the foods that I'm eating. So it just depends on how committed you want to be to changing the behavior and changing the action. If you want to take control of it, if you want to be disempowered, and some people, let me give you the flip side of that. There's another analysis to that. Some people like to be attached to their sadness. Some people are addicted to what I believe is Deepak Chopra or Wayne Dyer, who says they're addicted to their pain body. It is empowering for them to be able to get pity or sympathy from other people because they have a sad story. That has never worked for me. I mean, from young, Big P from the group home and going through the orphanage and coming through, the abusive situation in the family and the broken families and all the different types of tragedies and circumstances that I've experienced. I can talk about these stories from an empowered perspective because I took control of the environment, because it's important for me to have self-efficacy. It's disempowering to be telling a sad story for pity or for charity or for some sort of power differential, because some people like to tell you sad stories or pull at your heartstrings. If I'm explaining a story today, I'm explaining a story today to put you in a position of transparency and light so that you will govern yourself according to this situation that I'm telling you, I've seen this, don't do this. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not coming from a place where there are people that I have people in my head all the time with their long, sad story because they want me to stop what I'm doing and come pity them and poo-poo some of my energy onto their story, which is all well and good, but I'm not doing that because nobody can carry anybody else's burdens. What I can do is I can offer you some support. I can give you some feedback. I can provide you maybe some resources in some form or fashion. Maybe I can offer you a favor, but nobody in this place right now in this landscape can carry another person's burden. Grandma would say that is your cross to bear. Because for me, I'm committed to reprogramming my behaviors. I'm committed to changing my thought patterns. So I do. If you don't, I can give you these tools. Grandma said you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So if it changes for you, it will. If it doesn't, then it hasn't. And then it says meet people where they are. No, I can't meet you where you are when you're trying to take me into a hole and sink the ship. We're not both going down. If you choose to go down because you're not taking control of your circumstances, we're not both going down. You're going to sink by yourself on that one, buddy. I'm saying it is what it is. The reality is everyone should be committed and responsible for reprogramming their own behaviors and establishing new positive and contributing behavioral patterns and thought patterns. We can do that, and we can actually help each other to do that by creating those safe spaces for us to expand and grow as we continue to get rid of and melt off some of the negativity, because some of that is built into our social landscape as a natural default. Most of us don't even see it there. I read a theory about it called the Smith theory. We are on autopilot with our responses because it's already programmed into the social landscape. And the same response is within everybody else. Well, you guys wasn't talking to each other, so how did you guys arrive to the same understanding of this same concept? Why? Because it's what's been fed to the social landscape and everybody regurgitates it. The fact that it is unhealthy, not positive, and does not produce the greatest outcome for themselves or others, that is irrelevant. The fact is that everyone has this habitual behavior and it's on autopilot and replay. So it is up to you to be committed to changing your behavior. And if it requires for you to make a silly, dumb jingle or a silly, dumb dance or do a silly, dumb, twisty move or whatever it is that you need to do to bring yourself into a physically empowered position, posture yourself as such because the outcome is more important. Thank you guys for coming in. And that is my bit for today. Peace, power, and blessings. We're here at the Powerhouse. bringing it to you so that we can grow as people and become fully functional and reanimated Africans and humans, and to harness our humanity because it is owed to us. And I'm not a religious person, but the theory is this. And God breathed into man, and man became a living soul. Be a living soul, because life is for the living. Sawubona, peace, power, and blessings. We always stand for the sending of the African soul and opening of the African spirit. See you next time. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps the videos go farther. That is a great opportunity for others to get empowered here at the Keys to SOAR Powerhouse with your sister, Nephara.